Good morning, students. Welcome to biology lesson, grade 8. Our topic is the circulatory system. Still continuing our lesson. Before going to continue our lesson, let's have a quick review or quick recall about our previous topics. Our circulatory system, or we call as cardiovascular system, includes three main parts. One is heart, second one is blood vessels, third one is blood. The function of the heart is it pumps the blood into the blood vessels. These blood vessels carry the blood to every part of your body. Well, the blood carries oxygen and nutrients to cell and carries carbon dioxide and other waste away from the cell. Let's have a look about the part of the heart. Your heart is made of cardiovascular muscles or tissue. It is located behind your breastbone. This breastbone also called as sternum, and the heart is located between two lungs. A little bit of at your left side part, not completely left side part. Is the left side part between the lungs. Your heart has four compartments called chambers. Two upper chambers are called atriums and two lower chambers called ventricles. In heart, blood flows in one direction from an atrium to a ventricle, then from a ventricle into blood vessels. So between each atrium and ventricle, there are some valves. A one-way valve separates each atrium from the ventricle below. Normally, the circulatory system has three sections. One is coronary circulation, second one is pulmonary circulation, and third one is systemic circulation. When we talk about this coronary circulation, normally the heart has its own blood vessels because it is an organ. So the heart has its own blood vessels that supply the nutrients and oxygen to work. Normally, coronary circulation which supply the blood to the heart. So if there is any blockage in the coronary circulation, which can lead to the heart attack. So when a person having heart attack, so there are some surgeries, and this heart attack also called as angina. Angina is nothing but low blood flow to the heart. So which can give the chest pain, or we call as heart attack. When a person has heart attack, there are some surgeries. One is bypass surgery, the second one is balloon surgery, and third one is stenting. The second section in the circulatory system is pulmonary circulation. The flow of the blood through the heart to lungs and back to the heart, which is called as pulmonary circulation. Oxygen poor blood is rich in carbon dioxide and cell waste. So the color of the oxygen poor blood, oxygenated blood, it's also called as deoxygenated blood. So the color of this deoxygenated blood is dark red in color. When it comes about oxygen rich blood, It's also called as oxygenated blood, rich in oxygen and nutrients. The color of this blood, oxygen-rich blood, is bright red in color. In a previous class, we already know how the blood circulates between the heart and lungs, how the oxygen poor blood becomes as the oxygen-rich blood. We talked about in a previous lesson. So here, this picture is showing how the oxygen poor blood enter into the our hearts and how it becomes as the oxygen-rich blood. Let me explain quickly. So here, from head and neck part, oxygen poor blood enter into the this part. So, and at the same time, from our abdomen and legs part, oxygen poor blood also enter in this part, so which is called as the inferior vena cava. This vessel, blood vessel, called as the inferior vena cava, and this blood vessel we call as number one blood vessel we call as superior vena cava. By this superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, oxygen poor blood enters into the first chamber of the heart. So this is the right atrium. From the right atrium, oxygen poor blood enters into the right ventricle. So then after that, so oxygen poor blood goes to the lungs through, so here this we call as a pulmonary artery. So this we call as pulmonary artery, and when the pulmonary artery has two branches, so this will leads the one part of the lungs, and this also connects with the other part of the lungs. Let's say this is a lungs, one lung here, and this is the another lung here. So here, when the oxygen poor blood enters into the, like, through the this ventricle, right ventricle, it enters into the lungs through this part. We call as pulmonary artery. So through the pulmonary artery, oxygen poor blood enters into the lungs. Okay. In lungs, oxygen poor blood exchange their gases, means carbon dioxide released from the blood cells, and the blood cells collect the oxygen. When the blood cells collect the oxygen, it will become as oxygen-rich blood or oxygenated blood. So when the blood becomes oxygenated, the blood returns back to the heart through, so you are seeing here from the lungs, from one part of the lungs, oxygen-rich blood enters, and this part of the lung, oxygen-rich blood enters from here directly to the chamber we call as left atrium. So this is the left atrium. From the left atrium, this oxygen-rich blood enters into the left ventricle. When the left ventricle contracts, so right away the oxygen-rich blood goes through this part we call as aorta. So this part we call as aorta. So through the aorta, this all the oxygen-rich blood goes to the body parts. So this is the flow of oxygen, blood between the lungs and the heart. So this type of the circulation we call as pulmonary circulation. Well, the third section in the cardiovascular system, that is the systemic circulation. So when the heart pumps the blood, so the oxygen-rich blood or oxygenated blood enters into the a type of the blood vessels we call as arteries. So here the word is arteries. So oxygen-rich blood always flows in the blood vessels we call as arteries. So through the arteries, the oxygen-rich blood reaches to the every part of your body or every part of cell. Then when the cell uses this oxygen, then automatically the cell releases the carbon dioxide. When the cell releases the carbon dioxide, so these blood cells again carries this carbon dioxide, then it will enter into the other type of the blood vessels we call as veins. So veins always carries oxygen poor blood or deoxygenated blood. So here you can see oxygen rich blood flow in arteries and oxygen poor blood flows in veins. So this is about the systemic circulation, and you must remember systemic among these three type of sections, systemic circulation is the largest circulatory system. Well, today we're going to talk about blood vessels. So these blood vessels, already we learned that there is a two types of the blood vessels, like as we know that one is a artery and second one is vein. So before going to talk about these blood vessels, in the middle 1600, the year 1600, the scientists they proved that in circulatory system the blood flows always in one direction. Like on the streets, main streets, you are seeing all the cars and buses, they are moving in only in one direction. Like similar way, so in our body or in human body, the blood flow always in one direction. So later on, when the science is developed, so there was a scientist, his name is William Harvey. So he discovered the blood circulation in humans. So in human body, there are three types of blood vessels. One is arteries or artery, second one is veins, and the third one is capillaries. Well, let's talk about arteries. So when the blood is pumped out from the heart, or when the heart pumps the blood, so this oxygen-rich blood or oxygenated blood travels through the arteries. Later on, it will travel to the capillaries. So what are these capillaries? We're going to learn these capillaries sooner. So first you must remember when heart pumps the blood, which type of the blood? This is a oxygen-rich blood, oxygenated blood. When the heart pumps this oxygenated blood enters directly into the arteries. So later on, from the arteries, this oxygenated blood enters into the capillaries. Through these capillaries, so this oxygenated blood enters into the cell or every part of your body. There, the cells they use the this oxygen and they release the carbon dioxide. Again, this carbon dioxide collected by the blood cells. So now the blood cells again enter into the different type of the capillaries which are connected to the veins. Veins are the other type of the blood vessels which always carries the deoxygenated blood or oxygen poor blood. So here each ventricle of heart is connected to the artery. Right ventricle connected to the pulmonary artery, and the left ventricle is attached to the aorta. So, well, let's go for the second one is veins. The second type of the blood vessels, those are veins. So these veins carries the blood back to the heart because so these veins always carries deoxygenated blood or oxygen poor blood. So when it comes about these veins, so these veins have a special character. So when you observe these veins, so veins, they have the structures which called valve. So these veins have one-way valve that keep the blood moving towards the heart. So this is a special character of the veins. You must remember, veins always carries deoxygenated blood or oxygen poor blood. Normally, this oxygen poor blood enters into the heart through there is a main like veins. One is superior vena cava and second one is inferior vena cava. Well, let's talk about the third type of the blood vessels. Those are capillaries. Capillaries are microscopic blood vessels, and these both arteries and veins are connected by capillaries. Capillaries are the connectors between the arteries and veins. So when comes about the capillaries, which comes from the artery, they help to supply the oxygen and nutrients to the cell, and the other type of the capillaries which connects to the veins, they will collect the waste material and carbon dioxide from the cell. So these are about the blood vessels. So before going to start our next topic, let's watch a video about how our heart functions. Okay?
Where is it? Here you are, my childhood friend, my inspiration for becoming a doctor. Did you hear that, my friends? Even after so many years, it's working fine. Both the stethoscope as well as my heart. So, let me take this opportunity and tell you about a vital organ in your body, a symbol of love and nature's wonder known as the heart, and how it works. Zoom in! Everyone knows that the heart is one of the most vital organs of the human body and is located on the middle left side of your chest. But do you know about its essential function? Well, the heart's important job is to pump blood through the circulatory system, thus providing the oxygen-rich blood required for staying alive. Staying alive, staying alive, ha, 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 staying Oops, sorry, my favorite song. So, where were we? Oh yes, how does your heart work? Close in! The human heart is made up of 4 different chambers. The upper chambers are called the left and right atrium, and the bottom chambers are known as the left and right ventricles. It all starts in the upper right atrium, where the deoxygenated blood enters the heart. From there, the blood goes through the tricuspid valve to the secondary chamber called the right ventricle, which pumps the blood to the left direction through the pulmonary valve and then through the pulmonary artery directly into the lungs. That's where the blood mixes with the oxygen. Then the oxygenated blood travels back through the pulmonary vein into the left atrium and finally through the mitral valve into the 4th chamber called the left ventricle and then pumped out to the rest of your body. Phew, that's a long journey. Trivia time! Did you know your heart pumps about 2,000 gallons of blood every day? Also, your heart beats about 100,000 times in one day and approximately 35 million times a year. During an average lifetime, the human heart will beat more than 2.5 billion times. Until next time, it's me, Dr. Binocs, zooming out. Staying alive, staying alive. Bye.
Well, let's have a look how the heart functions. You are seeing the movement of the blood into the heart. You are seeing that how it is moving. Well, this is the function of the heart, how it pumps the blood. Well, let's go to our topic. You are seeing on the screen how the blood vessels or these arteries, you are seeing in the red color, this part, this is an artery. So these are the arteries, and these the small blood vessels we are calling as the capillaries. Sorry. And in this part, you are seeing these are the veins which carries the deoxygenated blood, and these small blood vessels we call as capillaries. So in this picture, you are seeing the flow of the 2 types of the blood vessels. One is this one is the artery, and these are the veins. And in the left hand picture, you are seeing in our eye how these 2 types of the blood vessels are connected in our eyeball. So you have to remember the blood vessels are 3 types. One is arteries. Arteries always carries oxygen rich blood or oxygenated blood. The second type of the blood vessels are veins. These always carries oxygen poor blood or deoxygenated blood. And the third type of the blood vessels we call as capillaries. Capillaries are microscopic vessels like small blood vessels, so which connects arteries and veins. So through these capillaries, the oxygen and nutrients will enter into the cell. So when the cell produces the cell waste and the carbon dioxide, then it will recollected by the blood and it will enter into the second type of the capillaries, that is which connects to the veins. So this oxygen poor blood travel towards the heart through the veins. So this is about the blood vessels. Now, let's talk about blood pressure. Blood pressure. Normally, let's imagine you have one air balloon, like aerobic balloon. So when you sit on this aerobic balloon, so your pressure, your weight pressure will distribute throughout the balloon. All the parts of the balloon will get the pressure. In the similar way, when your heart pumps the blood throughout the circulatory system, once the heart pumps the blood, this pressure which generate from this heart, so this will push moves throughout the blood, like all the body parts will get this pressure. So when the heart pumps the blood, the force of the blood on the walls of blood vessels is called blood pressure. We call as blood pressure. Means when the heart pumps the blood, this pressure is distributed throughout all the arteries. So this type of the pressure on these artery walls we call as blood pressure. So in the right hand side, you are seeing the blood pressure. Normally, so you already familiar with the blood pressure because you can see your like most of your grandfathers and grandmothers, they're having this kind of the like problems. They keep saying it's a blood pressure, or in Portuguese we're gonna say tensão. Okay. So here you are seeing the blood pressure. The ideal blood pressure should be 120 over 80. So what is this 120 over 80? We're gonna talk about sooner. So when the ventricle contracts and blood is pushed out of the heart, means when the heart pumps the blood, so this pressure distribute throughout the arteries. All the artery walls get this pressure. So this pressure we call as systolic pressure. Once the heart pumps the blood, so the blood forcefully enter into the arteries. So when the blood enters into the arteries, the artery walls become having the pressure. So this kind of the pressure we call as systolic pressure. Systolic pressure. The same time as the ventricle like filled with the blood just before they contrast again, means when the blood these ventricles become relaxed, all the blood, deoxygenated blood enters into the ventricles. So this kind of the pressure we call as diastolic. So these numbers are indicating that when this systolic pressure should be 120 and this diastolic pressure should be 80. So this pressure in human body we call as ideal blood pressure. So if it is the systolic blood pressure is 90 and the diastolic pressure is 60, we call as a low blood pressure, means there is some problem in your heart which is not pumping properly. And if the blood pressure is like 190 is the systolic pressure and 100 is diastolic pressure. Let's say 120 over 100, it's a high blood pressure, means your heart is working more than normal, means it's pumping a lot of blood. So this kind of the blood pressure, indicating that how your heart is like working. So when the blood pressure is 90/60, we call as the low blood pressure, means it's indicating your heart is not pumping the blood properly. If the blood pressure is 120/80, we call as ideal blood pressure, means it's a normal blood pressure, means your heart is pumping normally, like your heart is working normally. When it comes about this 140/80, means 140 is a systolic pressure and 80 is a diastolic pressure. 120/80 means you are about to get this high blood pressure. These are the indications sooner you're gonna get the high blood pressure. If the blood pressure is 190/100, means you already have the high blood pressure. Means the systolic pressure is 190 and diastolic pressure is 100. So means you already have the high blood pressures. So when you have the high blood pressure, it is indicating that your heart is pumping more blood, like it's working abnormally than normal. Means your heart is working more than normal. Means it's pumping a lot of blood. So this is the indications of the blood pressure. So when normally in our body, there are the blood vessels, means arteries and veins, they are having some nerves. Okay, nerves. So these nerves always control the blood pressure. So when the blood pressure in a healthy person, when the blood pressure is low, like when the blood pressure is getting low, means these nerves from these arteries and veins send signals to the brain. Okay, now the blood pressure is low. You have to brain should send some signals to the heart to work little bit more. So like this, the nerves in the arteries and veins, they control the blood pressure in a healthy person. So this is about blood pressure, and this is the ideal blood pressure 120/80. 120 is indicating systolic pressure and 80 is indicating diastolic pressure. So you have to remember this is the ideal pressure in the human beings, in adults. But when it comes about the childs, like uh, the age between the from newborn babies to until like 12 or 13, so there is a the variations like in systolic and diastolic measurements, even though in old people more than like uh, 60 or 50, the age of 50 or 60, you can see the changes of these systolic and diastolic pressures. The numbers will change. But normally, if the blood pressure is like, as I said, it more than 140 over 90, like 140/90, it is not a good health sign because the persons are having high blood pressure. Well, or let me finish this cardiovascular diseases. There are three cardiovascular diseases. One is the atherosclerosis. So this is the one of the leading cause of the heart disease is called atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is caused by when the fats are deposited inside of the blood vessel. Okay, so this will cause the space will close by these fats. So when the space is closed by the fats, so the heart is need to pump the like it needs to work more efficiently. So let's talk about this in the next class about these cardiovascular diseases. I hope you understand this lesson, how the blood pumps well, how the heart working and how the heart pumps the blood and types of the blood vessels. Okay, have a good day. Stay home. Be safe. See you in the next class. Bye-bye.